Hey everybody, welcome back to Fantasy Theory. So in this video, we're going to break down, theorize, look at Easter eggs, and just go through The Boys Season 4, Episode 5, which had a lot of action in this episode, from flying goats, bulletproof chicken, Huey's dad going crazy, and just so much more. So we're going to break it down and just go through it. This episode is titled Beware the Jabberwock, My Son, titled after issue 3 of the spin-off series Highland Laddie. It also has a lot to do with Gen V, so I guess this is where watching it helps, but a little quick breakdown of Gen V to kind of get you up to speed if you haven't seen it up to this point. Gen V was centered around gifted college students. We find out that there was a virus being cooked up at Godolphin University that can kill soups. It can't affect humans, but only soups. The two characters we see in the show, Kate and Sam, are actually pretty evil by the end of the show, but with the help of the media, they're painted in a much better light, being called the Guardians of Godolphin, while the rest of the crew, Andre, Marie, Emma, and Jordan, who were kind of the heroes of the show, are now locked up at the end of Season 1. Now, if you didn't know, the actor who plays Andre recently passed away, so I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with this character. I heard just play it into the show, but of course, may he rest in peace. Newman also took control of the virus at the end of the show, while Butcher was only a few steps behind her, as he says in this episode. So the show starts with the Vault logo because we are at Vault 52, which is a play on the real-life D23, where Disney announces a ton of new shows and movies for their properties like Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and so on. It says Vault looks to be created in 1950 and not 1952, which is what we all thought Vault was created, because Vault 52, because Disney was created in 1923, which is why it's called D23. The movie posters we see: 1953 bomb site in The Curse of Fu Manchu, 1957 Liberty Budweiser ad, Liberty was Stormfront before the rebrand, 1967 Crimson starring Soulja Boy's X, 1970 Big Chief Apache says don't litter Kemosabe, 1979 This Means Noir, you don't find him, he finds you, 1984 Whiskey Sunrise, 1988 Red Thunder 2 Payback are back, 1999 Y2 Chaos starring Lamplighter, 2007 Queen Maeve, Her Majesty, 2007 again Rising Tide starring The Deep, 2018's Translucent Invisible Force 2, and 2022 Dawn of the Seven. We see Homelander, Maeve, A-Train, and The Deep, what looks to be like extra footage from the Dawn of the Seven movie because they were filming it in previous seasons. The entertainment subsidiaries that we are seeing are Vought Studios, a play on Marvel Studios, Vought Team Mundo, Vought News Network, Vought Soul, American Hero, V2V Television for Women, and Vought Plus, also the Cameron Coleman Show. We see cosplays for people like The Deep, A-Train, Homelander, Maeve, and even Lamplighter, and we'll even see later on Ezekiel. Homelander, watching from the side, is having flashes of his childhood, still showing he may not be over what happened, even after what he did in the last episode. And if you haven't seen the last episode, highly recommend checking it out because it is sinister. Sage tries to talk to Homelander, but he just does not respond. He is just so mad. We see the VCU timelines, a play on the MCU timelines, where they release the phases for the movies coming up. They have phases 7 through 19, and I'll pull up a picture so you could see all of them. And my question, which one looks the best to you? I'm not gonna lie, some of these, when I looked at this, some of these looked actually really good. Like, for example, I like, the training of A-Train, but also Homelander and Soulja Boy Annihilation, The Seven Returns, and especially the G-Men movies, most specifically G-Men Days Past from the Future, which of course is X-Men Days of the Future Past. Of course, the chances are, if you think this is a parody of something, it probably is. So Huey's dad is awake and he seems fine. The last thing he remembers is shopping for pizza rolls, and we learn from Season 3 when Huey tells a sad story to Starlight that after his mom left, his dad would buy pizza rolls in bulk. He says it's a miracle that he's alive, but we know it's just a compound V working that will ultimately lead to his death. We see Starlight's HQ is spray painted all over the walls and just destroyed right after she probably beat down on Firecracker. Mother's Milk and Monique are talking to the daughter about beating up a boy at school, where she uses the example that Mother's Milk does that too for his job. So there's a little bit of division in that family even more. We see Mother's Milk is still wearing the Big Pun shirt, and on the walls we see pictures of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X in the only photo that they have together, as well as Fred Hampton and of course Biggie and Tupac. We see a folder labeled Godolphin U, which is the infected students of the school that they tested on, that Kistler gave to Butcher. Kistler goes through the boys' crew Butcher's crew, and Butcher kind of defends them, even defending Kimiko really well, calling her a good weapon, which at first I was like, good weapon, does that just mean he's kind of using her and he doesn't really view her as like a human or anything like that, or if he's really genuinely complimenting her, which to me seems like he has a soft spot for her, as we'll see later on between a moment between them when he releases the rabbit. Back at the HQ, we see billboards for Vought on Ice, which is just wild that they even have the billboard right next to the same exact people in the office trying to take down the 7, as well as the Singer and Newman sign. Frenchie in his desk has French flag case as well as rosary beads, and rosary beads will be a big thing for him this episode as he tries to almost repent for his sins that he's committed. Mother's Milk has now switched to a Fat Joe sweatshirt, and of course we have to point out what Mother's Milk is wearing because he's got some style. I gotta say that he's got some pretty good style. Butcher now tells everybody about the virus that we spoke about before, saying that this virus could kill Soups, and Starlight and Kimiko are very worried about this. Back to Vault 52, they have a memorial for Ezekiel after his death in the last episode with the song I Will Remember You in the background. We also see, of course, the cosplay of Ezekiel, but I want to add, this cosplay has Ezekiel with a halo on him because I assume now they assume him as an angel because he's dead. There's a moment between Coleman and Deep where we see the Deep is mad that he reported on his firing as the head of crime analytics. Mother's Milk is itching, which we will see later on in this episode that he has hives because he is leading the team and the team is just getting to him at this point. And the GOAT, yes, the GOAT, Stan Edgar is back, not in his usual suit but in his prison outfit. The place he's in is the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, which it just seems like a normal prison and not like a high-level prison, which is just weird. Why would you put him in such a low kind of level prison when he's this huge thing? I don't know. Huey's dad mentions he wants to take a Da Vinci tour in Paris, which will play a big part in some of his final moments of the episode. We also find out Huey named his dog as a kid Jar Jar, after Jar Jar Binks, one of the greatest Star Wars characters ever, I might add. They go to that farm where we've seen in the trailers where we find out Stan Egger's home. One of Stan Egger's home, as we know he has many homes. Newman has been using the basement as a lab to test on animals for the virus. Interesting enough, we see the virus is cracked over a drain, so I wonder if this will play big into something else soon, maybe infecting some water for certain soups, because as they pointed out during the episode, it is airborne. A rabbit that has been given the V, Butchers takes out and lets it go, where Kimiko sees this and sees kind of a sweet side of him and kind of takes a nice moment between them, because as we know and as they've shown throughout the show, she does not like cages and, people or animals being locked in them. Newman reveals herself and Starlight now can't use her powers, kind of like a classic Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man 2 thing where he can't use his powers anymore. But we go back to V52 where we see A-Train's movie with Will Ferrell and he is just not into it. A-Train says the more money a movie costs, the better it's gotta be, right? Which is kind of a shot at all studios pouring huge budgets and big amount of reshoots into movies, making them cost substantial amount of money and then just being terrible. They released the Black Addict campaign, which is just, come on now. Both A-Train and Sage are used in it, but also Black Noir, who he calls as unspecified human when he's talking about race. So are we just going based off his suit because it's black? Homelander starts to let Ryan speak his mind in a weird way and tells him if he doesn't want to do the movie, he doesn't have to. And he kind of gets some enjoyment after saying no. Starting to appeal nicer to Ryan and, showing his nicer side and letting Ryan kind of spread his wings and fly because he never really got to when he was growing up. Ryan starts to take some special, case to it. Stan Eggers mentions Prince Andrew gave him his shoes and, okay. Crazy scene, the farm animals, like the chickens, are now hopped up on V and are bulletproof and attacking everyone. Coleman dumps Ashley because she is no longer high up in Vought and it would just be a terrible decision for him in the future. While fighting between Butcher and Starlight, which is a theme throughout this episode, Frenchie preys on his rosary beads kind of as one of his last resorts before what he does at the end of the episode. And it's interesting because it's almost like it's his last resort again with guilt after Colin finding out about him murdering his family, but I wonder if it's for all the murders and not just the murder of Colin's family. Victoria says to Starlight she wants to let Nadia out, and if you don't remember, Nadia was actually her real name before she got adopted and when Stan Egger made her change her name. Butcher finds the rabbit, and it's like a prediction or an implication that what Butcher is looking at right now will happen to him at the end of his life with the tentacles coming out of the rabbit, so it's kind of like a metaphor for what's to come. I don't know if I'm using that right, but let me know down below. Huey's dad goes missing, and he just eventually rips somebody's heart out, so he sees his powers and he's going crazy with them. His powers are kind of like phasing through stuff, but as we see, he could kind of phase through people and like killed him. He's also starting to completely lose his memory, which is really, really bad. Kate and Sam were also present to announce the Guardians of Godolphin movie. Kate also, might I add, has arms now. I think if I remember correctly, she lost them in the ending of Gen V, but I don't know. Maybe they're doing something to cover it up. Ryan wants to help people, but Homelander starts to twist it and makes him think that he's helping in a way, but instead he's just being a little more cruel. When he starts to see the director flirting with a woman, he asks if she's uncomfortable. When she says she is, he keeps making her slap him. And he actually takes some enjoyment in this. So it's starting to see like Ryan starting to be appealed to and starting to take a liking to Homelander's new way of teaching him. A bull breaks out, but is easily taken out by flying sheep. Yes, you heard it right, flying sheep. And Frenchie is just so mad about this happening to him again. Yes, I said again. And we see Zoe's dad, who I assume it will be playing a big role forward by how it ends with him at the end. We find out the hamster they gave V2 got out and transferred it all to the animals on the farm, which is why it's such a big problem at this moment. They plan to infect the dead body that one of the sheep got to with the last of the disease, with the virus, and the sheep of course will fall for it and start to eat it and then die. They then realize that Samir has been killed and they have his leg just to remember him. Newman breaks Stan Eggert free after the boys don't hold up their end of the deal because they said as long as they get the virus they'll keep him out of jail, but they don't get the virus, so there's no reason to keep him out of prison, which is fair, I guess. Homelander finds Coleman to be the leaker when in reality it's A-Train, but he forces Ashley to help him because Sage is really onto him. Frenchie eventually turns himself into the police because I guess the prayers are just not working, and Huey makes some concoction up that he learned from Frenchie to help his father die peacefully when his father says in one of his last words he wanted to do one of the Da Vinci tours and not end up as Jar Jar. Butcher, we see, has kidnapped Samir and he is actually not dead and they just cut his leg off, but they want him to produce more of that virus. So that's why I say he'll probably play a bigger role later in the episode. And of course it ends with Old MacDonald had a farm. So you let me know what you thought of the episode. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think it really progressed the story forward. At some points, I thought it was a little fillery, but then by the end of it, I was like, oh, this makes sense. And my filler allegations were just not correct. So I thought the episode was great. But let me know what you thought about it. Leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching this breakdown. Let me know what you're excited for the next episode, because we have episode 6 and then 7 and 8 and then the season's done and we only have one more season of The Boys, so it's pretty upsetting when you think about it, but we'll think of the glass half full. Thanks for watching and have an incredible day.